I know now why you cry, but it is something I could never do. My name is Matthew Kroll.
Watch it, Lugnuts. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film. I can't believe we're doing it. Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
You got so excited, I felt like your eyeball was about to pop out.
Yeah, because I am. And I'm so psyched.
The veins are popping out of your neck.
And we'll get into why I'm so psyched, but I'm so 100% on board. Let's fucking go. This is my jam. And we're particularly doing this because I feel they just did a 3D re-release, which I saw.
Yep.
One of us saw.
I didn't. I did not.
And we'll talk all about it. But Shahir, I am pumped beyond pumped.
I'm nervous about this episode, to be honest.
Why?
I'm nervous about it because I think we know off the bat both of us love this movie.
Sure.
Right? Like we've talked about this movie a bunch on the podcast, probably since day one.
Yeah.
Since Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah.
I'm nervous because I don't want this episode to just be a gush fest for Terminator 2. I want us to really get into this film and think about it analytically and think about it just exactly why we love it and whether that love is earned.
A spoiler alert, it 100% is, and I have.
It doesn't matter if it is or it isn't. The question is giving reasons why. I don't want us to just sit here and go, "Oh, it's awesome! It's the best movie ever! It's just awesome! I love it."
Did you do notes, Shahir?
I did do notes.
Okay, good, because I did notes and I did a lot of sort of reasons why things happen.
Okay, good.
I'm not, and I'm taking a little bit of offense to your just instantly feeling like, oh, I'm just going to fanboy this one and not have shit to back it up.
I didn't say you. I said us. I'm hoping we don't just sit here and go.
That's not our style.
That we just oh my god, this movie is so amazing. Which I think is when you're revisiting a classic like this.
Sure.
When a film that meant a lot to you growing up. It meant a lot to me growing up. I think it's easy to do, and I think it's easy to sort of to not think about it analytically or not think about it just as reviewers, which is our job.
Well, I think
our unpaid
internship.
Our unpaid internship.
I think the cool part for me, especially because God, I've been not being paid to review films for the better part of the last 11 years.
Okay.
Holy shit, that's sad. But whenever I revisit a classic like this, specifically ones that I have a long history with, I always find it is fun to dive in, and there's very few films that hold up to the level of scrutiny that I'd like us to sort of put to this. I mean, to your point from before, and coming out the other side with me still having the same feelings that I do for it. Because I mean, look, we can tear anything apart.
I think we will prove that we can't tear apart this movie. I'm not suggesting, by the way, that we're tearing it apart for the sake of tearing it apart. I'm just saying let's be rigid with it, and if we do love it, and if we do actually really, really love it, let's say why, and let's give an argument why we love it.
Because normally we just don't give reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I just think in the case of a film like this. But a much beloved film like this, I think it's very easy to. If we did Jurassic Park, I would worry about the same thing.
No, I understand, and I think now I think you're saying that less for us and more for people listening to be like, oh, what the hell are they going to say about Terminator 2?
Exactly.
And there'll be some new stuff in there because there's so many. Hey, what's interesting? Even with the 3D re-release, there's so many editions of this film. Right. There's 3 or 4 different cuts. It's been released all over the damn place in many different formats. I mean, I've owned it, I think, on 4 separate formats.
Okay. This is definitely a film that is whenever there's a new format, I will buy this film in that format. Right. So when I finally upgrade to 4K at some point, this will be a film that's worth buying.
And I'll be curious to see if is it available in 4K right now?
I don't believe so.
Okay, well, whenever it is, I'll be curious to see what cut of the film they put out on 4K, because I was shocked which cut of the film they put out for the 3D re-release.
Right.
There's just and it actually is its own cut, which is very strange to me. But it doesn't matter. I mean, any cut, any way you cut it.
We'll get to the. I want to get to the film in 1 second. I just want to issue out a couple of corrections that were sent in to us.
Corrections?
Yes, corrections came in from CJ Johnson in Australia, who's a friend of the show, has been on it a couple of times. Fun fact: the CJ Johnson and my bromance that has been brewing in the background of the show took another turn where where he, after listening to my stories of coming from Fiji, realized that his family is also has spent a lot of time in Fiji, and he spent a lot of time in Fiji, and our families might have actually crossed paths in Fiji, which is a pretty.
Did he ever buy you a trucker hat?
He did not buy me a trucker hat.
Okay, so whose bromance is actually stronger? I mean,
Point taken. Yeah. Point taken. But last week on Logan Lucky, I mentioned, I believe I mistakenly said that Catherine Waterston was British doing an American accent, and I thought she was doing an excellent job of it. Turns out she is actually American.
So she did do an excellent job of it.
She did an excellent job of it, yes. And she is also the daughter of Sam Waterston, actor that you've probably seen in many a film.
What else did we get wrong?
The other one was something I actually acknowledged in the liner notes, which was that I mistakenly, again, this is me, when we were talking about Detroit, I mentioned the film Near Dark, and I said it was starring Christopher Lambert. It is not starring Christopher Lambert. It's starring Adrian Pasdar and Bill Paxton, but I just got that wrong in my head.
See, this is why you shouldn't be knowledgeable about anything, because then people can take you to task for it.
But I will say, you did agree with me on both these occasions. You didn't.
Half the time, I'm just like, yeah. No, that makes total sense to me. I trust you. You led me astray. I don't know why you're putting me on this.
But if you want to write us in with your corrections, omissions, if you think that I am being a pompous douche with my incorrect facts, please do so.
That is not the reason you are a pompous douche.
Please do so at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Write us in on Twitter at onlymoviepod. Please leave us an iTunes review if you feel so inclined.
Yeah.
And also, if you own a 4K Blu-ray copy of Terminator 2, send it in to us.
You should probably just send it our way. It would really be the thing that pushes me over the edge to buy a 4K projector.
Okay, Matt.
Yes. Hi.
What's Terminator 2 about?
Oh, do you want me to read the IMDb?
I just let's get this out of the way, because we have a lot to talk about.
Hilarious. Okay, here we go. A cyborg identical to the one who failed to kill Sarah Connor must now protect her 10-year-old son John Connor from a more advanced cyborg. Cool. I mean, that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
Look.
When did you see Terminator 2?
I saw the year it came out, in the year of our Lord, 1991.
Wait, how old were you? You would have been 9 years old.
Yeah, 9 years old.
You went to the movies and saw it?
I went to the movies and saw it. It was a thing. Honestly, I think it was sort of my dad loved Arnold Schwarzenegger. He instilled that sort of love in it with me. I probably watched some Arnold movies. I think I've talked about this in the podcast before, how we saw Predator, like my mom was out of town and like he took me to the video store and the whole magical moment, blah, blah, blah. I was definitely Team Schwarzenegger over Team Stallone. Not that I had anything against Stallone.
I think that's warranted. I think that's fairly well warranted given the caliber of films that Schwarzenegger did.
Yeah, but that was kind of like the weird mini, like not rivalry, but like kind of rivalry.
This was your Civil War before there was Civil War. This was your DC versus Marvel before there was DC versus Marvel.
I think even though Arnold played, even though now they've swapped, Stallone is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a Ravager captain, and we all know Mr. Freeze.
You know, a fun fact I learned today is because Honest Trailers released a Honest trailer for the movie Face Off. Face Off was originally written for Schwarzenegger and Stallone.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Which makes a lot more sense than Nicolas Cage and John Travolta.
Yep, 100%.
But yeah,
so I saw the movie when I was 9 years old. And it honestly is the first real memory that I can like viscerally remember the entire experience of being in the movie theater. And that's something, again, I don't want it to, well, it's going to, but fuck it. If this was a lesser film, I would say that is going to taint my opinion of it. But I can back up. I can practice everything that I'm about to preach. Okay. And the big takeaway of this, honestly, is that this was the first piece of media, the first film in particularly that I ever cried at.
Okay.
And this was the movie that taught me that a couple different sort of lessons that I think are kind of important when dealing with any sort of cinema. One, a movie can be more than just one thing. I feel like up until that point, I was like, oh, this is a comedy. This is an action movie. This is a drama. Like I had compartmentalized what a film was. I didn't realize that they could
you were aware of genres at the age of 9?
Yeah. I knew what they were, but like I thought like, oh, if it's a comedy, it can't be sad. Like in my kid brain.
Right.
And this was the first time where I was like, oh, shit. And then the second time is when I started crying at the end, obviously, when it's the saddest moment in cinematic history. It knocked me for a loop to the point where I was like, oh my God, like film can make me have this level of an emotional response. Like to remember that as a 9-year-old is weird as fuck.
Right.
And it's stayed with me ever since. And I honestly think, I know I equate Escape from New York for the reason that I actually decided to go into television and film. Mm-hmm. But I have to honestly give the super genesis of realizing the power of the visual medium of film to Terminator 2, because that's when I realized it could actually do all of the wonderful things that it does.
It knew now why you could cry.
Yeah, well, I knew now it could make me cry.
There you go.
And it was something that it did. I saw this in the theater 2 days ago, and I didn't cry, but you got the feels. Like I welled up a little bit, and I was like, oh my God. What about you? So you said this was important to you.
It was. I think there were other movies that came before it that I kind of fanboyed over. I remember Batman, the original Tim Burton one, was one when I was younger that I got really, really excited for. I was like hyped up in the marketing and the comics, everything there. I think I'm trying to think. I have a funny feeling the first movie that made me cry was either Flight of the Navigator or Dead Poet Society. One of those two films made me cry.
How old were you when you saw Dead Poet Society?
I would have been like 9 years old. And it made me cry. The Oh Captain, My Captain thing kind of really welled me up.
I feel like this is a very telling thing about both of our personalities.
I'm sure I would have cried in movies before then, but that's the one I can like really remember. Yeah. Flight of the Navigator as well, I think really.
Flight of the Navigator scared the piss out of me.
Right, yeah.
I never cried.
It's a dark movie.
It's dark, and I rewatched it recently. Mm-hmm. It has a bunch of problems, as a kids alien movie from that era sort of does, but like they don't make the dark kids movie anymore. Like Stranger Things is the closest thing to it, and that's too self-aware to even really do it. Yeah. Like Flight of the Navigator, listeners, if you haven't seen the film Flight of the Navigator, watch it. I'm not going to say it's a great film.
No, but it has some really interesting ideas going on.
And it's dark.
Yeah, also a time travel movie.
Yeah.
But then I was a big Arnie fan back in the day as well. I remember bonding with friends at school, like the thing that we had in common. I remember on the first day of school, Kurt Williams and I, the thing we bonded over was our mutual love of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, I was more in love for the movies. He was actually a bodybuilder.
Really?
Yeah, he was like really into weight training and that sort of thing.
How old were you at this point?
Again, we were, this would mean
12-year-old weightlifter?
Start of high school. So
like 15, 16.
13, 14.
Well, 14. Yeah.
And he was really into weight training. So he loved Arnold for that reason. So I was really a big fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, as I think every kid around that period was. And then there was just this huge... I remember I used to watch Entertainment Tonight, like late night. It would play at like 11 o'clock at night in New Zealand. And they had...
When you had to switch the channel off of the scrambled porn when your parents walked in the room?
We didn't have... we were so unsophisticated with television, we didn't even have scrambled porn.
Oh, it was regular porn?
No, we had no porn like streaming to our televisions. Well, actually, the first one that I remember, and this again will probably tell you a lot about me, was the Decameron by Pier Paolo Pasolini, which was like the first R18 movie that came up on our paper service.
Sure.
So I was like, ooh, I'm going to watch that, and it was like this bawdy Roman tale with not a lot of sex in it. Anyway,
young Shahir was disappointed.
Yeah, very disappointed. Anyway, I got very hyped for Terminator. I think there was something about seeing this notion of the liquid metal man that they really teased out in trailers that really captured the collective imagination of the time.
Yeah,
it's hard to overestimate how big a deal Terminator 2 was when it came out. I don't think there's a movie today that causes this level of excitement. I remember back then it was Batman, which I remember seeing when I was a little kid and being disappointed by. I remember going, this isn't as good a movie as I was thinking it was going to be. But when I went to see Terminator 2, I was like, this is as good a movie as I thought it was going to be. In fact, it's better than I thought it was going to be. Here's a fun thing as well. I know this probably didn't happen this way, but Peter Jackson writes about seeing Terminator 2 opening night in Wellington, New Zealand. This was before he was the Peter Jackson that we know, which is also the same night I went and saw it, and he talks about being at the same movie theater that I was at. He's not obviously writing, I was at the same movie theater that Shahir was at. He was just talking about this movie.
Was he not?
No, I don't know why I mean, look, Peter, I don't know why you don't mention me anymore in any of your stories.
Maybe it's because you're too busy gushing over Soderbergh.
That's true. And I was 9 years old at the time. But he mentioned seeing Terminator 2 that night, which was the same night I saw it with my older brother. And he talked about that being a transformative moment for him where he realized he could do, because I think he was really trying to do King Kong, but I think he hadn't done Heavenly Creatures at that point.
Right.
So it was really a turning point for him. But I was absolutely blown away by this film. And it was a film that once I owned a VHS copy of it was a film that, any free moment I had, I would be watching this movie.
Yeah.
There was just no. If you have a spare 2 hours to watch a movie, it's going to be this one. Mm-hmm. So Terminator 2 obviously meant a lot to me. Now, did you? How were you on Terminator 1 at this point in your life?
Here's the deal: I hadn't seen Terminator 1 first.
Right. Okay.
I think a lot of people came to Terminator 2, kids in particular. So this is also during the interesting time. So I didn't know that first.
Yeah.
All I knew was Arnold was a good robot.
Right.
Which is fine for 9-year-old me. Yeah. Oh, R-rated Arnold's a good robot. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
But the interesting thing I thought anyway was how this was during the era, and Aliens sort of fell into this a little bit as well. Mm-hmm. How these R-rated action movies would have toy lines.
Yeah.
I had Terminator 2 action figures. I had the liquid metal thing that blew up. I had Arnold with a minigun. Like these are violent, especially for the time, films that they literally just marketed to kids. It's like as if, and these aren't even as violent. I think they, but like the Fast and the Furious, if there were Fast and Furious action figures for children.
I wouldn't be surprised if they are.
There aren't.
Really?
I've looked.
Okay.
But no, actually I haven't. I don't know. Maybe they could be.
Yeah.
But like, it's just, it was during a time that like, it was just
cool
sort of,
to love Predator, for example.
There were Predator action. Yeah.
You get a Predator action figure. You get an Alien action figure.
So that was always, that sort of is what like tied me into it as well. I then saw Terminator 1 years later. And of course I didn't like it as much, but it was interesting to see Arnold as the bad guy. And then I came to the realization this movie gave me so many firsts.
Yeah.
That
lost your virginity.
A lot of different kinds of virginity. This lost my trusting and advertising virginity.
Oh wow.
Because I realized, and this was years later. This is maybe 4 or 5 years later, that the entirety of the first third, or not the first third, maybe the first fourth of Terminator 2. It's built around the idea you don't know which Terminator is the good one or the bad one.
Yeah.
And since the last Terminator, Arnold was the bad one, you kind of would assume whatever. But the trailer, and go back and watch the trailer now, it blows that right away. It's like the man who is the machine that was sent back to kill now must protect. And it like blows that whole thing. But since I'd only seen the trailer and then the movie, I was like, oh, this was common knowledge. But I every time I watch it now, I'm like, there's no reference to who's good and who's bad. In fact, you would think that the guy who's morphed into a cop is the good one.
Yeah. And I think you're right. The advertising does blow that. However, I think it still works on a character level. Like you're still like, this character doesn't know which is the good one and which is the bad one.
Yeah, no, 100%.
You know what I mean?
I'm saying, but they had the opportunity to let the audience live in that same headspace as the characters,
right,
and still have it be enjoyable and not confusing. And due to the advertising, they lost that.
I think again, this was the most expensive movie ever made at the time, and this was like in the wake of a film like Batman, which had like a huge marketing blitz. I think this was the period where let's do massive marketing blitz, and I think what's different now is that we are in a period of oversaturation of media around the release of a film where a trailer contains the entire 3 acts of
sure.
And it was still a case where you could control the information that you were delving out. So I think they were still delving out just liquid middleman, Arnie's now the good guy.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't as, you know, and I think even if you just know those things, the film still has surprises for you.
Of course, it 100% does. But could you imagine going in thinking Arnold's the bad guy, then being like, what? Like, that would have been another transformative. So that movie would have had like 9 transformative moments as opposed to 8. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I just always have thought about that ever since then.
Okay. So we both loved the film. We both, I think, collectively that it was if you saw this film at the right age, it was a film that inspired you to get into visual effects. I want to take one sidestep right now. I asked on Facebook, I mentioned on Facebook and on Twitter that we were doing this podcast about Terminator 2, and we had a question come in. Before we get into the review, I want to address the elephant in the room that is being tossed around with the re-release of this film.
Sure.
And that is that last week, James Cameron was doing a press junket and was probably at some point asked his opinion about the new Wonder Woman film. And his words were something to the effect that Wonder Woman, in his mind, was a traditionally objectified character, and that he felt that the new Wonder Woman film by Patty Jenkins, while he didn't hate the film, felt fairly typical for a Hollywood film about a woman. And then he made some comparisons to what he had done in both Aliens and in Terminator in terms of like creating female characters. And our friend Stephen Buja had asked us the question, in light of recent comments by Cameron, how do you feel about Sarah Connor as a feminist role model? And I think to a broader extent, obviously the internet has eviscerated Mr. Cameron, perhaps rightly so. How do you feel about that entire exchange?
I guess what I'd say is, first off, you don't have to piss on someone else's candle to make yours burn brighter. And by that, I'm just sort of saying, like, okay, Terminator 2 is getting this re-release 3D, 25 years later?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
26.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he's asked about Patty Jenkins, obviously, because she's sort of in the
zeitgeist.
In the zeitgeist right now.
Now, to be fair, I've watched a couple of these junkets recently just in preparation for this.
Yeah.
And he's asked, how do you feel about Alien Covenant? How do you feel about Terminator?
Yeah. So I just don't understand why, even if you believe this, and I don't think I agree, why you'd even say, like, it just seems like a dumb thing to say. Because, again, You made an incredible character with Sarah Connor, and this film is iconic, and it will be in the public knowledge for as long as my generation is and our generation is here. Why be like, well, it's fine, but I did it better? Like, that's just there's tact, and then there's just not, like, I don't get it. Like, there's no point behind it. Right. Like, so whether or not he believes it or not. Now, do I think? I mean, this is a dumb question for a straight white guy to answer, but, like, do I think who's more feminine or who's a better feminine role model, Sarah Connor or Wonder Woman? Depends on the woman that women are relating to. Like, it's not a one-stop shop. So, like, it's just stupid to me. It's not that he believes it; it's that he chose to say it. Like, because we can all have opinions, but, like, I don't care if he thinks. Of course, he thinks Sarah Connor's better. He helped develop Sarah Connor. He made that character.
I don't think that's why he thinks she's better.
Okay, why? Then explain.
Okay. So again, to your point, I think it was just a ill-timed thing to say, and I don't think that we should hold him to the flame for saying something in the midst of a junket that is not particularly inflammatory. It's just. Well,
everyone wants clickbait. Everyone wants.
Yeah, it makes for a good headline. I think my thing is, and this might be clickbaity on our part here, is that I kind of partially, in some ways, agree with what Cameron sentiment was. Unfortunately, the way in which it is presented that he said it feels like he's kind of mansplaining feminism, and that's the problem with what he said, is that it feels like he is trying to explain feminism. Now,
I'd have to read it again. Was it very opinionated? Was it just like, I feel like I like my strong female characters to be like this?
What he's responding to is something actually I said on our Wonder Woman episode, which is that there's this kind of collective pat on the back going on right now about, hey, female superhero made a shit ton of money. Aren't we great? And I think, and I didn't find Wonder Woman to be a particularly great movie. I thought it was an okay movie.
And soulless son of a bitch.
Yeah, I really do. And I think, he's probably watching that. Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to presume what his opinion is. He was like, it's a fine film, but he's suggesting that, the things he did, for example, and I agree with this, in Aliens and in Terminator 2 are far more interesting than what they do in Wonder Woman from a feminist point of view. Now, unfortunately, feminism is many things to many people.
Right, I was going to say, who's feminism? Like, that's where you're
it means many different things. And I think he was addressing this notion that Wonder Woman's sexuality is an important part of the reason why we watch her. And then that's something that he worked very hard not to have in Sarah Connor and not in Ripley from Aliens. Again, this is very tricky.
Well, then he's defining what a woman is or what a woman isn't.
Exactly.
And that's problematic.
I think his sentiment.
My strong woman isn't sexy or is like, fuck you. Like, that's not.
Again, I don't think he's saying it this way. And I think there's this sort of willingness to leap on him for things he said. I kind of partially agree with the sentiment that Wonder Woman as a film is not as progressive as we think it is compared to some other films that have been around much longer. But I think it's feminism to couch that in feminism as an ideology is perhaps taking too far a leap, and I think he comes off as mansplaining feminism, which is not an appropriate thing to do. But again, feminism is many things to many people, and it means many different things. I actually do agree that his work in Aliens and Terminator 2 in particular is far more interesting than the work of Wonder Woman. Now, that's not to say that his brand of feminism is more interesting.
So you're literally just saying your opinion of it. You think these characters are more. Do you think Sarah Connor and Ripley are more interesting than Patty Jenkins as Wonder Woman?
Yeah,
that's a fine statement. Yeah. And anyone can make that.
And I think that's what he's saying,
if they'd like to. But that might be that we're defining what he meant, but that's not what he said. He came off like. And I have to reread it again, and I don't want to say like he's saying like, oh, I'm going to tell you about what feminism is, but he literally at a press junket where he could have just said like, oh yeah, it's a fine movie, I'm very proud of Patty or whatever, like could have just whatever.
He also said the same thing about Alien Covenant. He said something similar, like when he was asked a question about Alien Covenant, he said it's a fine movie, I like Ridley Scott a lot, which is what he said about Patty Jenkins. He said it's a fine movie, I like Patty Jenkins a lot.
But then did he go, but I did it better?
Well, he said he actually on Alien Covenant, he was like, it's not the movie I would have made. He was like, I wouldn't make that movie.
But and maybe that's what the more of the tactile thing he should have done with Wonder Woman. He could have been like, you know what? I mean, looking back even at my films, I think you could see I would have made a different Wonder Woman. But it's a fine, that's fine. He's a silly person for having done that. And I love James Cameron and I have a very interesting relationship.
Up late at night, takes you, is like, hey Matt, I just said this thing. I don't know how I feel about it.
Here's the Avatar 2 script. Will you not throw this one in the fire? Because he's made things that have changed my life, and there's no question that he, in his prime especially, was just this fucking powerhouse, just this madman of just cinematic gold.
He might still be in his prime. Let's see how the Avatar sequels go.
Well, I know 100%. But for instance, Avatar was, in my opinion, hot garbage. With a simple story that like mashed up two really outdated genre pieces and then threw sex with ponytails in it. And I was like, okay, I guess. Okay, unobtainium. Like, so like that to me, that's what I'd rather jump on James Cameron for. But then he comes out and says stuff like this, and it's disheartening. And look, I've never been on a press junket. I don't know how, you get asked the same questions 900,000 times, and people are hunting for this shit. And you could go at it this way too, of him being a little bit of a victim of being like, I've been talking about films for 6 hours to random people.
Yeah.
And eventually, you're probably going to get sick of either just being polite or like whatever, and you're gonna say some shit. Now, has he responded at all?
No, I don't think so, because again,
it's probably being made more of a thing than it was.
Yeah, exactly. And like articles are being written about.
But I don't think that James Cameron should ever, even inadvertently, try to define what a proper feminist icon is.
And I think what happened was that I don't think, just by reading it and by listening to a couple of others' comments, I don't think he was intending to define feminism. I think he was just intending to say, hey,
he likes a particular brand of feminism.
No, I don't even think he was intending to define feminism. I'm
not saying he's saying to define it. I'm saying he likes a specific style of it.
Yeah, I think he was trying to talk about his films versus what he did in his films versus what Wonder Woman did. And for all of that, Stephen, in response to your question, is Sarah Connor a feminist icon? She is in a very particular way, which is
Ripley is. I'm not sure if Sarah Connor is. Now,
So to me, what feminism has to do with
this is the only podcast about two straight men talking about feminism.
Exactly. So apologies right away.
Oh my, I'm so sorry.
But my understanding of feminism has to do with equality. Is generalized equality.
Right. That's the one.
And it has to do with basically trying to look at our gender normalization as we understand it,
and in that regard,
and rebalance it.
Yep.
In order to reach equilibrium.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in what I appreciate most about Sarah Connor is she feels like a fully fleshed out human being,
100%,
which is a low bar to mark for a feminist icon.
Well, she's even beyond a full fledged. I mean, she there's so many layers to Sarah Connor. I mean, she is literally a sociopath. Like I mean, granted, she's been through hell, and there's reasons why she has PTSD. She's not okay.
Right.
And Linda Hamilton plays her beautifully. But there's fully fleshed out as far as a script and a a characterization standpoint, but then there's also the layers that she puts on it that sort of further along, like, oh, this is a real person.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Aliens kind of deals with femininity in a probably in a more interesting way than the Terminator franchise does, in that the alien queen, it becomes a story of motherhood and womanhood.
Even beyond that too. I mean, you're 100% correct, but also I would say Ripley has a fuller set of character traits that you as a person would want to mirror than Sarah Connor does. Now, Sarah Connor's strong as fuck and resilient as hell, but she also is not okay.
I don't think being likable and good.
I'm not talking about being likable. I'm talking about
being fully functional is an inherent trait to, think about our male heroes who can be sociopaths as well. You know what I mean?
But what I'm saying is, I think we threw the word at what was like a sort of role model type thing.
Yeah, the role.
That's more of what I'm talking about here. Not what is a fully fleshed out character. Icon. No. I think icon was when we were talking about feminist icon.
So I think to Stephen's question, is she a feminist icon? Now, I think she could be interpreted as one.
Sure.
If you want to do that kind of reading, and there's no reason why she couldn't be.
I got it. I think she can be.
Yeah.
But because she's not built to be. Does that make sense?
Right, but I don't think Ripley is necessarily either. I think Ripley is a fully fleshed human being.
No, now we're on the same page with both of them, I think, at least in my brain, because the reason why you could consider them a feminist icons is because they're just designed to be full, deep, interesting characters that what their motivations are, either clearly or not, but they feel like real people that are not just set dressing or bullshit. Like they're fully fleshed out characters, and in that way, yes,
right. So I think that Probably just, I think, again, the comment, the way in which it came out, the kind of broader questions that this asks, and I think the response generally has been is that sexuality can be part of feminism, and that seems to be the part that James Cameron missed in his
he didn't miss it, he just chose not to do it.
He missed in his assessment of Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
he seemed to couch that sexuality meant that she wasn't necessarily feminist, and I think that was problematic.
At what
for
point,
readers.
Other than the fact that Gal Gadot is pretty. Mm-hmm. When was she fucking super sexified?
I think he said that she's a classically objectified character, and there is a case that
I know. Look, Wonder Woman was developed by a dude who literally was like full-fledged into bondage. Hell, the original breaking point of Wonder Woman was if you could bind her behind her back and her gauntlets touched with her fucking lasso of truth, she would become completely submissive. That was canon in DC Comics,
right?
So she didn't come from a place. But what I love about Wonder Woman, I love that we're talking about this, is that the community and the people that are fans of her have sort of championed her and turned her into more than the sum of her parts, and that is important to me. And I think that's the other side that James Cameron isn't seeing. I think he's very clinical. Yeah. I think he's looking specifically at a film, seeing something and saying, I wouldn't have done it that way, and in a very directorial big time director way, kind of put his foot in his mouth, and that's fine.
But to his point, and I think the underlying note underneath the note kind of thing, I think his point is that his films, Aliens and Terminator 2, do a better job of presenting a woman in a fully fleshed out manner than Wonder Woman does.
I don't exactly agree with that statement. I think it's done very differently. I think you can have sort of like
that may be if you're just reading it, but I guess maybe I'm couching that in that I think Wonder Woman is a much lesser film than and I think this will actually play into what I would love to talk about in terms of Terminator 2.
Right. Well, I'll just end it with this. Terminator 2 is a better film than Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
However, we are not judging both films just based on their one character that we've discussed from each one. There are many moving parts that make Terminator 2 a better film.
Okay.
So there's it's a lot more complicated.
It's a complicated thing, and we are, I think we said this before as well, is that you and I are bottom feeders in all of this. We're like jumping on the clickbait, and we were asked to in this case. But I think all of this is like someone said something and everyone's turning it into something else.
Are you telling me that people aren't hanging on every word we say?
I mean, I mean, look, listen, people are tweeting at me like you wouldn't believe right now about how much of a dick I am in terms of feminism.
No, buddy.
But look, I stated earlier, I love Terminator 2. I think it holds up marvelously. It is from a purely technical point of view, it is amazing to me that every time. There are between 40 and 50 visual effects shots in this film. Mm-hmm. And now we live in a world now where every film has in the vicinity of 500 and up visual effects shots. Every visual effect in this movie not only stands the test of time in terms of their believability today, 26 years later, they also still manage to make my jaw drop. And I was trying to think analytically about why that is.
Well, they still haven't nailed down Liquid Metal the same way. Like they have it like in all the different movies with the Terminatrix and then Terminator Genesis, where they sort of reboot the timeline. It never looks this good.
But I think you would argue that it actually looks better in those films, but it's not as effective because the context with which it is presented is nowhere near as realistic or as interesting.
No, I will 100% empirically say that if you put the scene where Robert Patrick morphs through the hole in the helicopter into the seat against, say, the new T-1000 getting shot in the abandoned shopping mall in Terminator Genesis, that the one in Terminator 2 intrinsically looks better. And the reason is, and it's got to be a sort of maybe an uncanny valley thing, but at the same time, it's not only what was technically available, but it's the way it was implemented, and also the level of restraint taken.
And I think that's what I mean when I say the context around the effect is as important. It's like so for example, when the Terminator morphs through the prison cells, right? And he just slides through there. We have been set up
the
to
bars.
We've been set up to that moment by a couple of things. First off, there are other attackers coming for Sarah, and she cleverly, without realizing that this person is there, she breaks off the key, and there's a close up of that key so that we know that no person can get through these doors.
Sure.
And we don't quite know what the Terminator 1000 is about at this point. We know that what he is, but we don't know exactly the parameters of what he can and can't do. They
have a whole scene setting it up.
You do, but then, for example, later on in the film, he flies through onto a wall and automatically flips himself around. And that's not a parameter that we would understand. It's just something to be like, oh, he can do that as well.
Well, no, I think it's a parameter I 100% understood it by the time it did it. It was a neat
So
effect.
You're saying every time he did something new, you were like, oh, of course he can do that.
So when Arnold is riding the bike with John Connor and they are talking about what the T-1000 is, they run down the gambit of what he can and can't do. He can form shapes. He can take the shape of people. He can make stabbing weapons. He can't become guns or knives.
Does that mean that you knew that he could morph into the floor?
Yes.
Really? You knew that
because
right away?
Because he could change himself into any shape or color with equal density. They talk about equal density and mass.
But what I'm saying,
it's a neat thing. It's a neat trick that I didn't think of. But when I saw it, I was never like, oh my God, I can't believe he does that. I'm like, that's a cool trick with this power set.
Okay, so then he goes through those bars, and that's like, oh wow, he can, the parameters of space as we understand it don't matter to him.
Sure.
And then but then immediately he knocks his gun against it, and his gun
he doesn't think about it.
So there's this sort of contextual thing where that it's like you get this sort of jaw dropping effect, and then you get this little moment at which tells you the parameters of that effect, and I think it's really effective in making sure that we're always couched in discovery. That's what everything that's why I think
that's a good call.
So for example, when the security guard is walking down the hallway, and then the security guard steps on the checkered floor, and then he walks past, and then all of a sudden the Terminator comes up out of it.
Yep.
That's a discovery for us. That's like, oh shit, he can also just slide into walls and stuff. He can just hide away like that. When he stabs John Connor's foster father through the mouth with a blade.
Wolfie's fine, honey. Wolfie's just fine.
There's a process of discovery that we as an audience have in that moment. It's like, oh, he can do that as well. Just like that moment, when he in the fight with the T-800 and he gets flung against the wall and he immediately flips over, just morphs himself back over. It's like, oh, not only can he take shapes and stuff, he can be really quick and nimble because of this power.
He gets punched in the face and it morphs himself into grabbing Arnold's fist.
You know what the closest thing I've had to feeling this way about an effect or something like that is in Half-Life 2. The gravity gun.
Oh yeah.
When you discover and that's what it is. There's a process of discovery with each new thing. And I think that's why the effects in this hold up so well.
I think that's an angle. I think it's an aspect.
I still look, it's 26 years later. Technology has evolved to a degree where to do what they're doing purely and simply today is far easier, and there's a layer of complexity you can add to it.
But they haven't done it.
No, but the thing is, the effect is better, but the context around the effect is worse. And
it's not about the writing. It's not about the writing of it.
It's 100% about the writing.
Hold on. First of all, the writing is an aspect. The moments you said 100%, that is all writing that is coming across, that's important. But I'm talking about literally just looking at a morphing effect from Terminator 2 versus a morphing effect of Terminator Genesis. Terminator 2 looks, just the visual, I'm not talking about the flourishes and the writing and anything like that, looks better. And I don't understand how that is. I think the only thing I can equate it to is people trying new things, and that's great. I don't want people to just keep doing the same shit over and over again. But for whatever reason, this is one effect that no film since then has gotten better at doing. And look, as far as why it works in the story and how it builds those sort of moments of discovery that you're talking about, 100% it's the writing. But it boggles my mind in the day and age. You work in VFX, why can't they make it look as good?
I believe that does actually look better now. Like, I think the visual effects in Terminator Genisys in terms of the morphing look better now, but unfortunately, we don't care. There's no process of discovery with it. There's no sense of wonder or awe or discovery that comes with it, and that's why it doesn't look better. Like the morphing effect there's a great article today about an oral history of the visual effects team, and they go through almost everything that they did. The morphing effect in Terminator 2 when he comes through the fire, I think it's a miracle that they pulled it off. You have to look at the technology. They had to create tool sets that that weren't even fathomable at the time. So it's a miracle that they even did it. Mm-hmm. I think now you would pull that effect off and it would look 100% better. And I think you can see the seams, but the reason why is the discovery that comes with it. It's the same reason why in Call of Duty or something like that, I don't care when I get a big grenade gun or a rocket launcher or whatever, but in Half-Life 2, a game that came out nearly, 10, 15 years ago now? You know, like the process of discovery that comes with the gravity gun still blows my mind, even though I know empirically the visual effects in a new game are much better. But the process of discovery with every effect are far more impressive. And
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but it goes beyond it. I literally believe you could put it in. Actually, you know what? This might be an interesting thing. The person I went and saw this with, Kristen, friend of the show. She was on the Warcraft episode, a couple others. Yeah. Kristen Fight. She had never seen Terminator 2 before.
Oh my God.
And it made my experience infinitely better just looking over and watching her reaction to a bunch of different stuff that what we're talking about 100%. Like it's what you're saying with the small moments in the writing, etc. I would love to just show her literally any morphing scene without a flourish, without the gun, whatever, like cut it off early or do whatever you want to do, that, and then a scene from Terminator Genisys and be like, which one looks better? Because I honestly believe,
to your point, the visual effects as effects are miraculous in this movie.
And how come they hold up? How come those hold up?
I think it's okay. So they're miraculous, and the point that I want to make as well is that they are the foundation for which visual effects are developed today. Sure. They built the tool set that make things happen today. But the reason they hold up is that they're surrounded within a context that is all about discovery. And I really believe that's
not why the pure visual works.
They are excellent. They're excellent effects. They're really, really excellent effects. They work wonderfully. They are masterfully conceived, and they are, and the thing that's amazing about them is they're conceived within the context of the story that they're in. So they're not like, things don't just happen for the sake of happening. They happen because like, even though this was the most expensive film of its time, I think the budget was $92 million or something like that.
There's a reason why every shot is there.
Yeah, like they're telling a specific part of the story, and they work to continually build up information around it. So they are jaw-dropping, and I think but just fundamentally, I agree with you that they do look just in the same way that the effects in Jurassic Park still look good. Like they do look excellent. But I would just urge to say the dinosaur of the pure one-to-one relationship of effects between, say, Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. The Jurassic World effects are better. There is more that you can do with the actual lighting. There's more that you can do with the actual musculature. There's more that you can do in terms of the processing of movement now than you couldn't do then. But the movie is better at giving you moments that actually hold up. Now, they still look good. It's not like we're not comparing like rudimentary effects like in King Kong, in the original King Kong movie from 1937 or something like that, where you can see the stop motion animatic or anything like that. These are still high level effects.
Again, I'm not arguing that the scripting and the reason why and the whole hodgepodge of stew that makes a film good or bad is not at play here. Of course it is. But like, for instance, you want to do the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World analogy. That to me, hot take. So Terminator 2's visual effects, without even all of the spiciness that you're talking about in script and whatever, are better than Terminator Genisys. Now, the effects in Jurassic Park versus Jurassic World, I would argue that the effects in Jurassic World are better than in Jurassic Park. And
they are.
Yeah.
But I don't care.
But this is the thing. And do you know the actual, because I don't, do you know the actual process they use to make the T1000 and T2?
Yeah, I have so the article is the oral history of the Terminator 2 visual effects, and you can read through, which goes through in some pretty fine detail, the actual writing of programs that were created in that.
So the programs that they use to make that stuff, for whatever reason, has a more tactile and lived in and realistic, for especially the film that they were making, better.
Well, okay. One thing that could be couched in why you think that is that, for example, they had to render those render. For example, today when we work in digital effects, we render at 4K and we can actually create a render at 4K. Which would, in 1991 or 1989, when this film was coming out, to do a render at 2K, which is the actual projection of cinema at the time, would be ludicrous. So they would do it at 1K and then scale it up. And then not only that, the film was actually shot on film. So it that filtering process would have to be then shot onto film and then added to. So there is a way to suggest that perhaps the optical
feels real.
The optical effects of combining, but that's something that we do now as well in visual effects. That's something that we take into account for now.
And I'm not saying that in 91 it was the pinnacle and nothing's ever gotten better. No, I'm literally just saying that for whatever reason, whatever process they did, whatever fucking dark magics they had to make deals with the devil to make it happen, the liquid metal portion, and then we should move on, just still holds up, still looks better than any liquid metal I have seen in any film ever made till then. And I bet you it has a lot to do with the process that you're talking about. With maybe it's just something, and again, maybe I mean, this is obviously opinion, but like for me, maybe it is something that having to do with the entire thing you just said, how it had to be projected back onto film, and that made it feel sort of lived in and like just sort of realistic, where this other stuff, all that stuff is still being done. It's just done all in a computer. So like,
it was still being done in a computer back then. I think to the point.
But then you even said they projected it onto film, and then they had to marry those two things together.
They had to do a telecine print back on.
They're not doing that now.
Well, no, because there's no film.
That's what I'm saying. But there's something to whatever magic stew or process that they did that made it just the best for me. That's all I'm saying.
But see, here's that thing I wanted to say about it as well. It was like, why does it feel that way? Why do you think that feels that way?
I literally just said that. I think it feels that way because
you just said it was magic stew.
Because of I'm calling the process that they did the magic stew.
Right.
How, for whatever reason, the technique and the technical acumen that they did in that process makes the effect and the whole thing look better and feel more real than whatever they are doing today.
And you don't think that has to you don't think necessarily it has to do with the context around which these scenes are written.
You don't listen to me when I'm
asking you that.
I literally have agreed with you like 5 times. Of course it all helps. It all builds upon the thing that makes this movie a masterpiece. There is no question that the context of these scenes we are talking about gain an incredible amount of strength due to the things that are around them or the little flourishes that they put in with the writing, etc. I have said this already, but again, I will go back because this is not getting through and I want to move on. If you take all that away and you just look at one little liquid ball versus another little liquid ball, the one from 91 looks more real. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, we'll move on if that's what you want to do.
Let's talk about more of the story stuff and these little things that you like that you're bringing up that I think have such a stronger feeling in the rest of the film.
I think
in all aspects of the film, not just the effects.
Yeah, in all aspects of the film, it fundamentally works. And I think the thing to remember as well is that this isn't like a pure I'm doing this because I want to tell a better story kind of scenario. You know, James Cameron was offered a lot of money to write this script, and he was basically coming off The Abyss, which really underperformed at the box office. And just from a visual effects point of view as well, one thing that was interesting is The Abyss was kind of the testing ground for the liquid metal man with the liquid petapod that was in The Abyss. But in The Abyss, they kind of did it in one scene and were like, well, if this doesn't work, we can just cut this scene out. And so they were kind of stacked. In Terminator, they kind of said, well, we did it in that one scene. Now we're going to do it in the whole film, and we're going to commit to it the whole way through. But to that point, remember that this is not a non-cynical kind of point where like he's doing it for the love of it or anything like that, or he's got something unique to say about this. He's being offered a lot of money. Arnold Schwarzenegger is the biggest movie star on the planet. This is the movie that made him famous. He's being offered the biggest budget in the world to do this. So what's amazing about that is that is essentially the equation that we get in modern films today when you're being asked to do a sequel to a popular franchise. Yet, in amongst that, he maintains he doesn't just have something to say. He expands upon the things that he was saying in Terminator 1. Now, remember, the foundation of Terminator is anxiety about nuclear war. It's anxiety about the possibility of the species entirely destroying itself. You know, John Connor says, we're destined to do this, aren't we? And the Terminator says, it's within your nature to destroy each other. This is the anxiety that the entire series is built upon.
The first two, yeah.
Yeah, and he takes that and he still builds that into a narrative. Like, he doesn't just abandon that. This film, the ending of this film, is basically saying we can avoid this if we want to. There's an optimism to the end of this film. It is, and in amongst that as well is this horror of what that means. It's not just an idle threat. The scenes of the nuclear holocaust that are in this film are horrific in a way that is almost indescribable. And it's funny because in Terminator 3, they almost have the exact same scene.
Not effective.
And it's not effective. And I would say it's not effective for the same reasons, which is that it's not anchored by a performance of Linda Hamilton, who is the Cassandra character in this film. She has seen the future and is belittled because of it. But when we see her vision and we see her flesh being torn away and we see children basically burning to the ground, it's not just like, oh, that's a really good effect. It's a case of that really tells me exactly why, Sarah Connor is so traumatized right now and why she needs to do what she needs to do. And it's something that no other film gets. And so the miraculous thing about this film in its writing and its execution is that film is designed to be a moneymaker. It's a franchise. It's a franchise build, but it takes what was implicit in the first movie and makes it explicit and does it without having to, it does it without being pedantic. It does it without being pious. It does it still through the talent of that's something James Cameron does very well, which is storytelling through action. It's something that we talked about in Mad Max. It's something that we talked about a lot.
Well, it's funny. So let's bring up Mad Max because we do.
Yeah.
There's a reason why this film does that, and it's because it is, oddly enough, and I do believe this, whether you like James Cameron or not, it's an auteur sort of piece. Yes, it's the biggest thing, and yes, it's whatever, but for whatever reason, he had still complete control over the damn thing, and he could tell whatever story he wanted to do. So he took the opportunity that a lot of people, maybe some people might phone it in, he didn't, and then the studio trusted him enough to not get in his fucking way. But now when we have big budget movies, oh my God, it is not just we've talked about this before. They get fresh faces off of great indies so they can control them, so they don't have a James Cameron that they can't say no to or that can't say no to them. Mad Max is a perfect example of that because again, this is Miller's vision. Like it's his world and he's doing it, and that's that. Now, I'm not saying that works out 100% of the time every time, but I bet you if you took talented people and you said you have control, like one talented person versus even if you have like 6 talented people, I'm even saying these people are talented. I don't think all these in this scenario would be, but like 6 talented people and then like maybe 3 useless people. Like the one that's just one person who's talented and in control is going to make a better product than this weird by committee. Oh God, we have to deal with Sam's cousin because he's the fucking studio heads and whatever. Like, it's just like, there's too much muck at this point when it comes to huge budgets. And I love that this thing existed in a time that this is the largest film ever made. And you know what? We're going to trust this guy, James fucking Cameron, to take Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger and make the greatest action movie of all time. That is, I mean, it's still it's still excellent. And we can get into why.
Well, the little exercise I did was that I went through IMDb and I pulled up basically analogous films that have come out since 1991. And I just scribbled down the names of films of note that I thought came, like that were of interest, like maybe, because it's obviously unfair to compare Terminator 2 to American Beauty, or it's unfair to compare Terminator 2 to 12 Years a Slave or something like that.
Is it though? Why?
I think in terms of like where the level of operation that those films work on, I think it's unfair to suggest that they're directly analogous.
I'm not following.
Maybe for me it's a filtering process. So I'm not trying to say because there are films that have come out since Terminator 2 that I adore, and I don't like they can just be different kinds of films. What I did want to do was look at the kinds of films that Terminator 2 is analogous to since the release, like big visual effects driven films that are summer releases that are designed to bring in a popcorn. And that's that point I was trying to make earlier, which is that this is not like an affair of the heart or something like that. Like there's a lot of money behind Terminator 2. There's a lot riding on this. People are still invested in this movie making money. It's got one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. People are throwing money left, right, and center to make this movie. So I pulled up all of these movies between now, and I would love if you took a second to look through them. And my theory is this: there are a couple of movies since 1991 that I think are excellent movies that work in the same way.
What's the list?
It's the list of movies since then. I think Terminator 2, if you released it any summer, any year since 1991 to today, it would be a better film than every movie that came out that year.
Okay.
And that's the thing I wanted to get into is why does this film feel so relevant? Why does it hold up? Why does it outpace every blockbuster that we're seeing today? I think this is a common complaint that I have on the podcast.
I honestly feel like it is the reason sort of that I said it before. It's literally a very talented person's vision that is allowed to follow through and through from beginning to end what the actual story is. And I think it sort of goes from a level of talent. I mean, read some off to me. I'm not going to read through that entire long ass list.
Okay. So, Kill Bill.
Okay. Why is Terminator 2 better than Kill Bill?
Yeah. Do you think Terminator 2 is a more effective film than Kill Bill?
Yes, it is more effective. But all these answers are going to be yes, but I feel like it's all the same reasons. And I think, I have a whole why does it still work section in my notes, which might answer some of this stuff.
Okay.
I don't quite know. But again, I'd be hard pressed even just glancing at your list to pick something that I think is an all-around better film. Mad Max Fury Road is close.
Yeah, so there's a couple for me that are close, and the ones that are close for me are Minority Report.
Oh, no fucking way.
I love Minority Report. Children of Men.
Yeah, I can see that.
Heat, which came out a few years later. Jurassic Park.
Of course.
Cabin in the Woods, Conjuring, Mad Max Fury Road.
I love Cabin in the Woods, don't get me wrong, but yeah.
Those are the films that I would kind of put, but most of the films that have come out, most of the big films that have come out in the last 26 years haven't held up to Terminator 2.
Okay, here's my first reason why.
Okay.
I think it's because I'm going to go back to 9-year-old me.
Okay.
It is because Terminator 2 is more than the sum of its parts. Mm-hmm. It is a film that, what genre is it? It's an action movie. It has a big budget. It has time travel, so it's sci-fi. Great. There's lots of those. Mm-hmm. The reason why it's better than all of the other ones that fall into that genre is the level of, again, I always go back to this, but character development and care of how the story unfolds to these characters that you very quickly become attached to. It's all, again, this is where I feel like the stuff you're talking about, and again, it does still play into the visual effects stuff. There's no question, but this is where I feel like that stuff is far more apt. When a film takes these moments, Liquid Metal, T-1000 going through prison bars and his gun gets stuck because he didn't think of it. Because why would he? There's little things like that make the world itself just feel in these fantastic situations feel real. And you take that level of the cake and you go one higher, and you then get to the point where it's about, again, what you talked about before. It's silly. It's a time traveling robot sent back in time to kill a kid who's going to be the leader of resistance against the war against them. Okay, like, calm the fuck down.
It's silly.
It's silly as hell. And if you keep track of the movies, the timeline is so broken now it doesn't even matter. But then you take that and you take a silly premise and you put this legit sort of narrative and undercurrent of nuclear holocaust and what that actually means, and showing it in a meaningful and visceral way, then you're like, oh, like, this steps it up a level. This is an action movie, but you know what? This is actually, you could take this further. It could be having a little bit to do with politics. It could be actually a human sort of, not rights, but I'm trying to think of like the proper terminology for it. Just like
I think. Are you trying to say that it's relevant? It's relevant.
It's relevant, but it's relevant beyond what it was built to be. That's sort of my point about it. And because so it has a ton of different, the story itself, yes, it's about like nuclear holocaust. There's no question. That's the core. But it's also a story, for instance, about bucking fate. Okay. So the whole thing is, the future's not set. There's no fate, but we make what we make for ourselves. And again, even though the newer films have sort of tried to ruin it, let's stick with Terminator 2. So there's so many tales about the chosen one, right? Yeah. There's so many tales about like, oh, this person's destined, Luke, whatever, Darth Vader, Anakin's going to bring balance to the Force, like, chosen one. It's a classic trope. There's nothing wrong with it. But the thing that makes this sort of special is, even though John is the target of a machine from the future sent to kill him because he's going to be the general, he's not a chosen one. They never put Sarah Connor was a waitress before all this nonsense happened to her. Like, there's no like, Sarah, you've been fated to raise John. Like, that's not what this movie is about. This is instead, we're presented with no one as a destined one. They're just forced into it based on the time, and they're going along with things the best these characters possibly can. And the entire series is based around the fact that anything can change, and no one is really special. Like, John's only special.
Don't you think the entire series is based on the idea that John is the chosen one?
John is not the chosen one. John is just a skilled So the difference is, this is where time travel comes in, because John is not. No one in the past said this little boy is going to save humanity. This is where, follow me down this weird rabbit hole.
Okay, I'm following.
Only people from the future have said that. And since they are from the future, that is not prophecy. He is not prophesized. He is not the chosen one. He just happens to be the guy that is the right man for the job. It's a way the character is an important character is presented, and it can only be done like this in a time travel type film. No, there's never like these characters like Anakin Skywalker. He's the destined to be the one. He's probably the one who's the chosen one who's going to bring balance. Blah blah blah. That it was written in tomes ages ago. Like all these sort of hero myths and stuff like that of these characters that are just, no matter what, they're going to persevere and come through. But you know what? This movie, what it does, another sort of aspect of it, the T-1000 or any of these Terminators could have gone back and won. Like it never feels like when you're said to a character in the beginning of a film like Harry Potter or whatever is like the chosen one, or he's the, I forget what the terminology of that sort of is, right? I'm never thinking he's going to die without winning. But when I saw this, when you're in these films, for whatever reason, because John and Sarah are not presented in that way, there is a sense of weight. The whole thing is about how fate doesn't matter. Right. Like, so there can't be a chosen one. Anyway, that's one aspect of it. That's just one slice of this weird little pie that
I'm going to just interject and say I disagree that the film doesn't present John as the chosen one.
He's not, because of how the actual narrative goes.
The construction of it is slightly different to say how a Star Wars does it and how Harry Potter does it. But the film literally opens with, if you go back to Terminator 1, Michael Biehn saying, your unborn child is the leader of the resistance, and I was sent back to protect you in order to protect him.
But you're not following what a actual prophecy or what someone being chosen is. You can't have that because that literally
I think there's a flipping of it because of the time travel element.
That's why.
But John is central to the resistance.
The fact that what is more central to that is there's no fate but what we make for ourselves. Therefore, there cannot be a chosen one.
I think that's what's clever about Terminator 2 in that the third act of Terminator 2, when they decide to basically go on
blow up Skynet or blow up Cyberdyne.
They go on the Adolf Hitler mission, of time travel. You know, basically, can we kill the person that causes the destruction?
Miles Dyson. She's gonna blow him away.
I think what's ingenious about about that third act is that it takes a turn that is logical to the film, but breaks what the direction that we think the film is going to go. I still think that the film still trades in the historically central Jesus Christ kind of central figure.
No,
I think it does.
Nope.
He's still the one child. He's still central to this thing.
He's a main character that is going to do something important in the future.
Yeah,
that's not the chosen one. If to be honest, and this is the interesting thing about it, the world that the Terminator series puts out there. If John Connor dies, Skynet might win for a while, but then someone else could just come up. It's not like
right. But I don't think any film has posited any.
No, but no film has also called him the chosen one.
Probably not by name.
That's
but I think
my point.
But hang on. But he's still a central prophet. He's like Neo. He's like Luke Skywalker. He's central to the he's central to the narrative.
He's central to the narrative, but he's not literally. Other characters aren't like, he's the chosen one. He's destined to beat the machines.
Literally, Michael Biehn from Terminator says those words.
He's not destined because the information is coming from the future. A prophecy is something that someone has foreseen in the past.
I will. I mean, look, I think the way in which the information is presented kind of flips it on its head in some way, but John is still the core reason. There are two Terminators sent back to kill this character, not any other character. This particular character.
That's the way history happened to play out. Yes.
Okay. But how does that not?
Anyway, we're talking in circles. We're literally not going to convince each other. This is, I'm sure, getting boring. So let's just. I'll back it up a little bit and say this: the way that the narrative of John Connor is structured in this world, where fate actually you can change it, is very interesting and not a normal thing in movies like this.
I will agree that the time travel element does flip it around somewhat, but he's still.
So it's a film on certain levels about bucking fate, and that is important to a piece of its longevity. Another piece is it's a story, and a little bit more minorly so, but it is a story about forgiveness. So Sarah, right, is raising John Connor and trying to teach him to become this great military leader because that's what, whatever.
That's what she's been told.
That's what she's been told.
Yeah.
So, but then it turns out that, because everyone who heard this would think that she's crazy. They lock her up in a mental institution. And John even has a great thing where he's talking to Budnick from Salute Your Shorts. And he's like, yeah, it turns out she's a huge wacko. And she's like, oh yeah, you didn't know, kid? Too bad for you. Like that, basically putting him in a foster home after he's learned nothing but military tacticianship and how to run guns.
Right.
This is not a normal childhood. And now he has to try to acclimate. So then when eventually, the T-1000 comes and the shit's hitting the fan, he decides to go rescue his mom, because even though he in his mind before this point, when he sees that all this is real, she's fucked him over. And now he's like, oh my God, she's correct.
Everything she's told has been correct.
And now it's sort of a level of forgiveness, almost the same to the fact of Sarah's arc with Miles Dyson, because she at first goes on murderous rampage to try to kill him, thinking it'll stop Skynet, but then she realizes she's literally attacking a man for something that he hadn't done yet, and what are the moral ramifications of that, and then through sort of him working with her, et cetera, there's a level of forgiveness between those two characters. There's just a lot of people thinking the world works one way, and then having right at the brink of literally pulling down on the weight of a trigger with someone's head, and then being like, fuck no, this is wrong, and coming to sort of a realization about how people are more than the sum of their parts, and how forgiveness actually can move things more forward than you think it can.
I think one of the beautiful, it's an example of beautiful writing, is the scene after the Pescadero hospital chase, and John goes in for, they're in the back of a police car. John goes in for a hug, and we think that, or Sarah goes in for a hug with John, and we think that, oh, she's, like her maternal instincts are coming back.
But it's not.
And she searches, like she's basically searching for bullet holes, for any cuts, for she still believes the things that she believes, and she's not willing to like release the kind of maternal instincts that she thinks will put John in danger. And it's this beautiful moment where you realize that the thing that he's searching for is a mother, and the thing that she's searching for is still to be the mother of the leader of the resistance.
Yeah.
And it's just because it's done without like them having a conversation about it. Everything you need to know about that exchange happened.
You want some of my fries?
No, yeah, she doesn't even respond, right? It's just an example of beautiful writing, and I think to your point about this idea that the film is complicating the idea of fate, that is something that is implicit in the first film, is that it opens up this third act to like a what if. Yep. The first film is basically 12 Monkeys, La Jetée. It's the idea of the circular loop. The second film is about breaking that loop, and I think it does it in an interesting way. It's
also a story, and we were talking about aliens and an alien about motherhood. It's a story kind of about fatherhood. The Terminator is clearly, obviously, a metaphor for a non-existent, like, real father figure for John. Of course, that's the VO.
In an insane world, he's the sanest choice.
It's the sanest choice. I mean, that oh god, that whole fucking monologue is beautiful. Just like talking about like Sarah, how Sarah is having a hard time with this too, because this is the face of the thing that hunted her, now protecting the thing that was hunting originally.
I think it's a wonderful kind of challenging narrative, like to actually put your character in that position.
But it's just so interesting because so you see John's foster parents and they seem fine, but they're not going to live up to this pinnacle of what actually John kind of needs in this machine. And also it's a different sort of dynamic too than we're used to in these sort of paternal stories, because yes, you have the Terminator who's like the protector, who's never going to be too busy to spend time with him or won't get drunk and hit him, as she sort of says in this monologue. But also you have John teaching the Terminator how to be more human.
Teaching about humanity.
And there's something to that where now John, the Terminator is obviously the sort of strong masculine like part of fatherhood, but John is actually more of an analogy for the teaching of a actual child to the Terminator.
Yeah.
And it's this beautiful sort of intermingling of that really hits home, and you don't get to see in stories kind of outside of this a lot. So that's a huge thing. Side note, so the version of the film that was in 3D, by the way, 3D, it's not worth seeing, but I mean, that's neat. You're like, oh, that's cool. But like every 3D movie, you forget that it's 3D 5 minutes into it and you don't care.
I hate to say it to James Cameron, but stop trying to make 3D a thing.
I know it's not going to be a thing. But it is worth seeing Terminator 2 3D in the theater, because you get to see Terminator 2 in the theater. That's what I will say. But so they chose the version of the film that after seeing this deleted scene, I couldn't believe they took it out ever in any cut of the film. And that is when they are hiding in the garage after they get away from Pescadero. And there's, in the original version of the film, there's a throwaway line being like, why do you have to be so weird or whatever? And he's like, well, I learn when I'm around people. He's like, oh, so you can be more human? He's like, yeah. And then after that moment, it's all questions from the Terminator. It's all things like he's just acting a little bit too different after just like one night in a thing. And the scene they cut out is a scene where they're repairing each other. The Terminator's sewing up Sarah Connor, and Sarah Connor's pulling bullets out of the Terminator, and they have a conversation about, well, why can't you learn? He's like, well, when we're put out into the field, our neural net processors are put into safe mode, so we don't like become too. Basically, he's saying so we don't go native,
right?
And so they're like, well, John's like, can we switch it? And he's like, yeah, but you have to take it out. So they take it out. They work on this whole thing, and the VFX are neat in it and whatever. It doesn't even matter. There's a cool scene with the mirror. There's a lot of visual trickery.
Do you want to know a really cool like lo-fi effect that was done there?
Yeah. Well, yeah. You can tell. I know it, but tell them for the people.
Oh, what was your one?
What? No, it's the I forget, but the angle of the mirror with how Arnold was talking about. Is that what you're saying, or what?
No, Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton actually has a twin sister.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And she's actually playing her in the opposite on the opposite side. Yeah. Which I think is rad.
But then the second that they take the chip out, Sarah Connor puts it on a table and grabs a wrench or a mallet and goes to smash it because she still doesn't trust the Terminator. John jumps over the chip. She almost hits John. They have a big altercation, and John finally convinces her that they need this Terminator. There's a lot of things that happen here. One, you get a reason why the Terminator starts acting a little goofy and weird and starting to become a little more human, and that's important to the narrative for me. 2, you get to the point where John says something along the lines of like, how am I supposed to be this great military leader if no one ever fucking trusts me? And that sort of shatters Sarah Connor's sort of belief system of like, that's where she goes from just checking him for bullet holes to kind of being like, no, like this is an actual child of mine and an actual human being, not just the thing that's going to save us. So there's all this shit rolled into this 5-minute scene that I feel is very crucial. This version of the film didn't have it as well. And that ever since seeing that scene, whenever I watch versions of it without that scene, I'm always just like, whew, like I get cutting down for runtime, but like there's so much to unpack that you just tried to save with one line. And if you didn't know that existed, it works. But knowing it exists,
I gotta say, I'm kind of I think the scene, there are other scenes in the film that have been there's one controversial scene that was cut out very smartly so.
Which one are you talking?
The very final scene where Sarah Connor's in a park.
Oh, fuck that scene.
Yeah, that scene.
Fuck that scene.
Needs to come out.
Yeah.
I am not mad at this scene not being there because I think a lot of what you say it needs to happen, in terms of that information, that just happens through action. I don't think it's a terrible scene.
It doesn't really happen through like we get it, but we don't have a reason why it's happening.
I don't think it's a terrible scene, but I don't actually need it for the story to move forward.
It's just every character starts acting differently than they did before, and you don't quite know why.
There's one piece of information that's in the extended version that isn't in the original version, and the taking of that out just makes the rest of it work for me. And that's when he says my CPU's in read-only mode. That's not something that's in the theatrical cut. They just kind of say,
yeah. Well, that's the reason they take the ship
I think
out.
at some point he asked her. So that information's not in the theatrical cut. So there's no distinction between read only and that thing. I think at one point he asks, "Can you learn things?" And he goes, "I'm constantly acquiring data." But that's it. It's not like I'm in read only mode or anything like that. And for me, that's all I need to know.
Well,
now it's not
saves one bit of it, but it doesn't. For me anyway, it doesn't save the other stuff.
Well, the other
Sarah
thing,
and John.
the Sarah and John thing for me works in the scene, in the fact that he comes to stop her from killing Miles Dyson and convinces her that there's another way. And I think that's where she kind of for me, I get that information. Now, I'm not saying that it's not in the extended scene.
But hold on. She doesn't kill Miles Dyson on her own and then they show up.
No, she's stopped by she decides not to, and then he convinces her that there's another way.
Right, but she stops. She does not kill
because
him.
she doesn't want to kill a kid. Like his Miles Dyson's kid jumps on top of him.
Well, no, she sees that there's an actual man behind this monster that they've painted, and she collapses into a corner, and then the Terminator and John Connor walk in.
Right, but there's a kid there that jumps in front of.
She has a clean shot. Like it's not. It's the kid's just there. Like, don't shoot my daddy. That's really. Then it sort of makes. Well, it makes. It's not about shooting the kid, in my opinion.
It's not about shooting the kid. It's about shooting
someone's father.
Yeah, I agree that scene does all that work. I just don't think. I think that information comes through anyway.
Oof, it's just so powerful.
And to me, also, I will say that there's a John Connor. Like, if there's any weak link in the film, and he's not that weak, it's Eddie Furlong. Yeah. And the more that Eddie Furlong has to have those kinds of speeches, the less I'm kind of convinced.
He's just become a little dated. We actually had an exercise after we watched this movie. We're like, man, could you imagine if this movie came out today, like the first time or whatever? And when John Connor's in the car teaching Arnold like words right after they leave that garage, like, you can't just say affirmative. You got to be like, chill out, or you can do combinations of chill out, the dickwad, like that sort of shit. Could you imagine the garbage that and this is me coming off as an old man, but could you imagine the garbage that current day John Connor would be teaching the Terminator? Like, it would be like about dabbing and like emojis and like what the fuck was on fleek. Like, it's just like the wording of it just like, so while John Connor feels dated, I feel like any sort of young character in that would also feel dated. Now, Eddie Furlong hams it up.
Yeah,
like there's no question, but I just find that exercise.
He's playing in the world of 1990. He's playing in the Bart Simpson world of 1991.
Eat my shorts.
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of understanding of rebellious youth.
Yeah. Then the last thing, just to sort of put the cap on my sort of reasons why I think this film is special and why it still stays sort of true and good. It's a story about, again, and there's a lot of stories like this, but you don't really expect this to sort of hit his home in a popcorn action film. It's a film about love and sacrifice, like in the face of weird, huge adversity. So it's like the Terminator was first programmed to give its life for John, but then as the film progresses, it becomes more human and then chooses to sacrifice himself for in a way that before he had that interaction. And honestly, for me anyway, and I know it's fine for different people, but before that chip was switched and he could do that, that wasn't even fathomable. So the change and the type of sacrifice he was willing to make, the meaning behind that sacrifice is completely different, and there's a whole thing of growth there. Sarah's willing to give her life to protect John to stop Judgment Day. That's a given. And then Miles chooses to sacrifice. I mean, this is a sort of smaller going down the spectrum. Miles chooses to sacrifice his professional life and his actual life in the end to stop what he thinks is going to be his fault. So just in summation of all of those things, very rarely does one film pull one of those things off totally believable. This film does all of those things in all of its pieces, with all of its mastery from all of its all of the people that were involved in making this film. It pulls off all of those and never misses a fucking beat. If the only thing we can really like, if we're like, oh, that doesn't feel right, is Furlong's sort of Bart Simpson-esque character, we're doing okay. Yeah. And none of the films on this list that you've compiled, you can say that about all of them. They all have some sort of fault or two to them, whether that's where the auteurism came from, if there was some committee shit, if there was a weak moment in writing, if there was just a perfunctory third act. Like, there's a lot of just different things I'm seeing on this list. And Terminator doesn't suffer from any of that and shines in so many ways that you don't expect a movie in this genre to do.
And I would say, looking at this list, the only film that comes close, is a recent film. That's Mad Max Fury Road, unfortunately, and Jurassic Park. Those are the three. Like, Heat is another one that I absolutely adore, and I think does that as well. I think I was thinking about my favorite scenes from the movie to surmise why I think this film is effective, and when I think about my three favorite scenes in this movie, none of them have anything to do with visual effects. Yeah. My three absolute favorite scenes in this movie. And I think, this is going to couch why I think this movie sustains itself so well, not despite being a visual effects heavy movie, but also compounded with the fact that it is an extraordinary visual effects movie. The first one is when Sarah sees the Terminator for the first time. She's in the and she falls backwards, and this woman that we have just seen obliterate an entire hospital staff, with wits, with strength, with power, with
windshield washer fluid,
is just reduced to a shrieking mess. Yep. She's just like, this is the horror of her dreams, come to life again. Mm-hmm. And it's an example of why this film is good, is that it maintains its belief in character. And the second one is to the point that you made, which is it is actually about something. So the idea of sacrifice, and the idea of sacrifice in the face of our instincts, and so there's a couple of examples of that, but the one that's important to me, the one that I feel is the most heartbreaking, the one that works the best, is Miles Dyson's sacrifice, when he decides that, look, everything I've been working my entire life towards, everything that I am about, every excitement that I had about this project is now meaningless. And not only is it meaningless as in I'm going to stop doing this, I'm going to go actively out of my way to prevent this from happening, because why would you?
And destroy my life in the process.
Yeah. And it's like the question, if you could tell Hitler that you are the reason why this many people would die, would you be, it'd be kind of amazing if Hitler turned around and said, shit, I can never let this happen. And that's like this beautiful little moment, because for Sarah, she has always thought that this man is just, and she says it, she couches it in terms of like masculinity. She's like, men like you built the hydrogen bomb. You thought it would be a good idea, but look where it took us. And so what's important here is that the film is deeply pessimistic about humanity. The shot of the children, shooting at each other, and John looks at them and says, we're kind of fucked. We're doomed, aren't we? And
they can't even agree on who shot each other first.
Right, yeah. I shot you. And he says, and the Terminator, just, using some book or something that it's probably learned at some point in its database is it's in your nature to kill each other. It's in your nature to destroy yourselves. And so it's a deeply pessimistic view. And again, the nuclear holocaust is not like just some idea in this film. It is visualized in a terrible way. But it is also an eternally optimistic film about how much we can change that. So it's pessimistic about what we are as a species bound to do, but it's optimistic about people making the right choices.
The future is not set.
And I think, like Mad Max Fury Road has that same sentiment, and it's that same sense of sacrifice. And then when I think of the film in those terms and I anchor it in those ways, other moments become, beautiful. Like, for example, when the T-800 decides to go out in the middle of a SWAT raid and only kneecap people, there's this beautiful moment that happens.
The minigun with 0.0 casualties.
Yeah. There's a beautiful moment that happens right before that, which is that and side note, James Cameron seems to have this uncanny ability to know what is iconic and what is worth just, telling as a story. But he rehashes the "I'll be back" line as an iconic moment. Like he zooms in, the smoke's coming in. It's just this like, yeah, we're going to play this moment up. And then when he goes out there, he gets shot up, like his face is like destroyed and stuff. And we realize that this Terminator has decided that my self-preservation is is not as important as following the rules that this kid has set up. And so, that kind of manifestation of like self-sacrifice in order for the better good comes through there. And it leads right into the final moment, which is like, the Terminator insisting, even though it might be a smart decision to keep the Terminator around, like insisting to John, who doesn't want to lose his new father.
There's one more chip.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, John.
Chip in the arm. Yeah.
I'm sorry, John. I have to go. And it is like this sort of, it's almost like a Harry and the Hendersons kind of moment, but it is like, it really works. And and I think that's why, like the films that I mentioned on this list that do that, like a Jurassic Park is about fatherhood and is about the willingness to accept our roles as fathers, it's about parenthood. Mad Max Fury Road is about sacrifice for the greater good, about being good in a world that doesn't really care about good or bad anymore. And Terminator is about the optimism. It is about the goodness within people to make choices that may not be in their own self-interest, but is in the interest of everyone around them. And I think that's why this film works and holds up today. And it's compounded, I think everything else about its technical acumen, its success at the box office, its usage of an actor like Arnold, who has this stiff delivery in a really smart way, is all secondary to its truly, truly fantastic writing. I think it's the best screenplay that James Cameron has written. And I think it is a testament to, like, this is a guy who has basically, he's dived to the deepest regions of the earth. He has come up with protocols for NASA on how they could possibly approach exploring Mars. This is a person that thinks deeply about humanity and about the way in which humanity works and operates. And I think part of him is entirely pessimistic about that, given what we know about history. And then part of him is entirely optimistic about that, given the endeavors that he does. And I think it's all kind of comes through in this Miles Dyson character. So to me, the reason why Terminator 2 sustains is that every time you watch it, those things still ring true. Yeah. Those things have never gone out of fashion. Those things have never like waned with time, and all that's left is this good visual effects movie. Those truths are still evident in this film. And that's why I think this movie is truly astounding. It is possibly one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's one of my top 5.
It's actually, it's strange. It's not a genre of film that I place very highly.
I know.
Like my top 5 film, it wouldn't be included in my top 5 film, but I think this is a miraculous film.
Yeah.
And I think a film like The Abyss is more ambitious about this, and it is much more.
Doesn't pull it off though. Doesn't pull it off like this.
Yeah. It's less subtextual about it. And it's got that great thing, which is that storytelling through action.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say just about the sort of re-release of it, and then we should conversation we've been going for a while, because this is Terminator 2 after all. Of course, we're talking for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
The re-release of it, the 3D is not worth it, but this is the kind of thing I'd like to see more in a non-3D standpoint. So there's a couple of, in video games, we brought up Half-Life. In video games, there's this term called quality of life improvements.
Right.
So it's when a game like The Witcher 3 came out, right?
Yeah.
And the inventory system was shit. A couple months later, they fixed it. Same exact game, they patch it for free, and now it's a better time to play. Was it broken too much to play before? Of course not. But now it's the quality of life. Things are easier. Things are slightly better. This is where re-releases, I think, Terminator 2, the re-release, gets it right. Where like things like the re-release of, say, like E.T., where they like turn the guns to walkie-talkies, or like shit like that is bullshit. Only very small things, like a little bit of the color was changed. I didn't mind the color. It's hard to tell in theaters these days too, because you don't know how the projectors.
Isn't it amazing though? It looks fantastic.
Oh, 100%.
Like it looks wonderful.
But like there's small things. So I don't know if you remember in the iconic, everything in this movie is fucking iconic. In the scene where Arnold jumps the bike, the T-800 jumps the bike down.
They replaced the face, right?
They replaced. So before it was a laughable stunt double because it's a dude doing that on a bike.
Yeah.
They did the face and it looks beautiful now.
Yeah.
They did that. The mannequin in the future Jeep in the very beginning that gets blown up by one of the hunter killer drones. There was always a mannequin that looked so stiff when the thing was flipping and it crushed and like it bounced funny. They fixed that. And I mean, this is the most important for all of us. You can't see Robert Patrick's balls anymore.
I just want to talk quickly about Robert Patrick other than his balls.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He is so good in this movie, and it's amazing because he's basically tasked with being more physically intimidating with than Mr. Universe.
Oh my god!
And than the character that inspired so much fear in Linda Hamilton's character in the first movie, and somehow someone who is physically smaller, who is classic. Looks like a spindle next to Arnold Schwarzenegger, is way more physically intimidating. The run, the look, the cat-like prowess, is and the calmness with which he executes every decision. It's kind of masterfully done. Really it's really it might be another reason why the visual effects hold up so well as well. It's
poised.
Yeah, well, it's also the visual effects are part of this character. Like we feel like we're seeing a character, not an effect. And I think that's why it works so well. And to the point, Robert Patrick's been in a lot of things. X-Files, not the least of. And I don't think he can ever shake this particular character. So you can't look at this character any other. You can't think about the Terminator 1000 and think about Robert Patrick in some way. So it's his masterful. And I think the interplay, one of the things that we don't think about this film as an ensemble, but Linda Hamilton, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Eddie Furlong, and Miles Dyson, and Robert Patrick, just an incredible cast that don't necessarily Joe Morton, the brother from another planet. Just wonderfully cast that work together perfectly as an ensemble. It's just again, that might be another reason. Everything we've said are reasons why it still holds up today. The only thing I can fault it for is its slightly dated terminology. That's about it. I think I do disagree with you that I think it is still couched in the Chosen One mythology, but it's one that I think actually works really well in its favor. So I'm not mad at it for that. I
agree that you're wrong.
Okay. If that's your final word on it.
No. I think please go see it in the theater. Even if you hate 3D, I hate.
I don't
saying
think they've
that.
got much of a chance to see it in the theater still.
No, it's gonna be leaving soon. But it's such a magical thing. And even Kristen was saying, she's like, I'm so happy that I saw this in a theater.
Yeah.
Which is great because this is not her genre. This is not a thing that, so I don't know. It's just,
she did enjoy it, right? She did
she loved it. And she was talking about it after the fact that she was having the reactions that obviously obviously more well spoken.
How did she think it stacked? I don't how did you think she stacked up to other films she's seen? Would you think she agree with the point?
Yes, I think 100%. She was basically saying how she asked the first thing. She's like, why aren't other action movies like this. And I think we've talked about that at great length at this point. So like that question alone is that's the problem.
And I think, you just have to look at, they should do a re-release of Aliens for the same reason. It's like, why aren't action movies like this anymore?
I don't know. Anyway, this has been, and I can't believe I'm saying this, it sounds so stupid coming out of my mouth, the only podcast about the film Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And
it's, okay, yeah, look, we'll move on, but it's just amazing to me. It's still a sequel. Yeah. I am dumbfounded by how good this movie is. I watched this with the commentary on, thinking I was going to try and get some extra bit of information for this podcast.
You didn't pay attention.
No, I stopped the commentary halfway going, I actually just want to watch the movie. Yeah. I actually just want to like enjoy this experience. Yep. So please go out. I mean, yes, if you can see it in the theater, do so in the theater. I personally think, and I didn't see it in the theater. I have a home projector at home, so I was like quite happy with my large screen. I don't think 3D is in any way going to enhance this experience.
It was neat, but it wasn't necessary. And for all the work they did to make it look nice.
Did you have to pay extra money for 3D?
Yeah, just a little bit.
I don't think it's worth. I don't think the 3D is worth it, but the ability to experience the movie in a theater,
I was happy to pay the money that I did.
Yeah, is entirely worth it.
But anyway, thank you everyone for listening. This has been a long time coming for me, and probably for both of us, really, that we've kind of wanted to talk about this movie. It's just interesting that it's in the theater.
Our end of year wrap up is going to be really interesting this year, I think.
Why? Because this is now a contender.
Because this is a contender on the list.
Great. Well, now you don't have to listen. Next week we're doing our special, right?
Race and representation conversation, which I think I'm
super pumped about.
After our feminist discussion I think we're gonna walk into some landmines.
I can't wait to reference our feminist discussion with not just dudes in the room. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. I think we're gonna go out with. I want to go out with the classic.
The
of course, why can't you have to? And the score for this film is just mind-droppingly wonderful.
It's a weird score. I listened to it isolated today. It is actually quite a strange score, but it works beautifully.
But I listened to it literally, but I was a strange kid. I had it in a Discman, and I was just listening to it while I mowed the lawn. It's that level for me.
They did this thing with the T1000 where they made sounds like scissors. Yeah, it felt like scissors were everywhere. Matt, where can people reach us or find you on the internet if they wanted to tell us how wrong we are about Terminator 2? How possibly we've just been wrong this whole time, and the reboot of Star Trek is just as good.
No, they can't. That literally could not happen. But if they want to talk to me about anything else, they can reach me at MatthewKroll.com. That's MatthewKroll.com for all my life and works. Emperor MSK on Twitter, and Skeletor, the number 4 PREZ on the Instagrams. Shahir, when you are not being faded or not faded to discuss one of the greatest films ever made, where can folks find you?
You can find me at ShahirDaud.com. That's ShahirDaud. And we've talked about this before, but robot music videos coming out and I don't want to overhype it, but the reason I want to mention it in this context is that robot music video that I'm releasing with Nigel Stanford on September 15th is directly influenced by Terminator 2. We were on set and we said this is a music video imagined if it was directed by James Cameron. Not suggesting I'm James Cameron, but we were just saying
we're doing that a little bit.
We were just saying let's do it via James Cameron.
If your music video wasn't so fucking good, I would tear you to shit for saying even the not analogy of you to James Cameron. But you fucking killed this video. I know I've said this a million times.
I don't want to overplug it.
I do. Fuck this. It's so good. It is so good, and I can't wait for everyone to actually be able to see it and agree with me.
We hope if you do see it, you can write us in and why you think it's connected to James Cameron's Terminator 2 by writing us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at onlymoviepod.
All right, let's hit that score and get the F out of here.
Woo!
All right, bye.